Norfolk Business Show with Danny Snelling. Sponsored by MT Comms.
Right, so Adam, we have you in the studio. I like to think I got the interesting guys in early, certainly. But you've certainly got quite a background, and certainly lots of your businesses that you and your family have been involved in have got quite a presence here in Norfolk. So yeah, I think brilliant to have you on the show. Before we go back in time, what are you best known for now?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on, Danny. I'm hoping I'm going to meet this interesting accolade as your 6th episode. So yeah, what am I most known for? I'm now the Managing Director of ROARR. So we're a dinosaur-themed adventure park based in Lemwade, 9 miles west of Norwich. The park has been running it's been running since the mid-1980s, and my father acquired it in 2006, and I've now been part of it for about 15 years. But we also own and operates Appwood Countryside Park and Appwood Hall, so a camping and leisure park, as well as a wedding venue situated behind Banham Zoo, which my sister runs, and I oversee that as well. So they're probably the 2 main things, but I appreciate you said don't go back in past, but it's something that...
No, I didn't say don't. Yeah. I mean, just not now. I mean, there's lots to cover in the past, so,
sure. Well, I think, our name is very much, it's very familiar with Banham Zoo because my father set that up in 1968 and acquired Africa Alive, which is formerly Suffolk Wildlife Park, on the Suffolk coast at Kessingland in 1991. So hope that gives you a brief.
Yeah, no, that does. I mean, now let's go back in time where it all began and right up to where you got involved, I guess. So let's go back.
Yeah, let's do it. We're going to go back a few years because I'm the 4th generation. So my full name is Charles Adam Goymour, and I get called by my middle name because it's a family tradition. And it goes all the way back to 1909, where my great-grandfather started up C.A. Goymour and Sons, which was incorporated in 1929. And he started off as a master baker. Let's get that right. He developed a fantastic bakery, starting out...
Wasn't Greg's, was it?
No.
I don't think that was 1829.
Unfortunately not. That's definitely grown and developed, hasn't it, over the last few years. And he started out learning his trade in North London, and then he set up shop in Bury St Edmunds. So during the sort of First World War and Second World War, my granddad took over, and he then was, he was a very great entrepreneur. So what he then did is, after making that work at the bakery and learning his trade off his dad, great granddad, he then bought a few other shops, did it himself, but then realised he could probably make better money by letting it out because it was becoming quite hard to run it during the Second World War times. And then he decided to pick up and move his family, which included my father, who's one of 6 children, to Banham in 1952. And then he got into property. So he had his farm at Banham, and the house is situated opposite the local shop, literally adjacent to the zoo, to Banham Zoo. And from there, he got into property. He borrowed a lot to invest and do up a lot of properties, mainly for the RAF bases at Mildenhall and Lakenheath, and that's where he earned his fortune. But he didn't stop there.
Sorry, but it's really interesting to hear about someone into property that long ago, because everyone thinks it's quite a modern thing, and it's since property prices have gone nuts. But it's something I've never given thought to, that sort of thing did happen earlier on than that. And I guess they saw just as many booms and busts as we have. So that's interesting, man. So he then went on to, presumably, buy Banham Zoo, did he?
Yeah. So he acquired the land, the farm, and they had a farm shop, and then they thought, right, how can we keep people coming back and get them to stay for longer? It's funny because when we look at that was the 1960s, and it's come full circle now because farm shops have really become a craze again, where a lot of farmers diversifying, people like going out to them, and so they grew it by putting chickens, lots of other sort of animals around there that people could enjoy when they went to the farm shop back then in those days. And alongside that, we set up Rent-A-Fridge because during those times it was, more economical to rent fridges and freezers. So that's where my dad started out in the business, working for Rent-A-Fridge, which is a limited company. Rented them out to a lot of the homes that he developed and built and owned, as well as the bases, which is really good. And my father really got into the animals, and he started to get a weird collection of animals that were really bringing people there, and he got a bit of a name and a reputation for it, and it grew and grew and grew. But it got to a point where I think he said that his animal manager at the time said, okay, these sorts of animals are no longer in my job description. They're starting to get, some dangerous animals and weird and wacky animals. So in 1968, Banham Zoo was formed off the back of having animals to help bring people to the farm shop. And that became my dad's passion. So when we looked through, great-granddad was a baker. My grandfather was very much an entrepreneur looking into property and growing his business from there, and doing that and diversifying the farm to get income that way through the farm shop. And then, transgressed really to my father having a passion for animals. And going back to what his first animal manager said about saying this is not in my job description, the zoo licensing laws came in.
I was going to ask, when did they come in?
Yeah, I think it was the 70s or 80s. Forgive me, I can't remember exactly. But that's where that really grew. And that was my, the get up and go that my father had, enjoying that and taking care of animals and about conservation and education, which is still at the helm of what the zoo is about today with its values.
Yeah, good one. So that was your father. Sorry, did your grandfather first do the Banham Zoo, or was it your father? Sorry.
I think it was very much my father really was the driver behind it, but I think it was set up jointly between them. But it was very much spearheaded by my father.
Yeah. And did you have any involvement in that growing up, or did you?
Certainly did.
Yeah.
I grew up inside the zoo until I was about 9 years old, so we pretty much felt like a extra exhibit, really.
Yeah.
So for those who are listening that may know, the reception bungalow in the zoo, or guest services as I think it's called now, that's where I grew up. Half of that, and the other half was to Dad's animal manager. It was a fantastic upbringing. We got to see and experience so much. So we're hand rearing a lot of marmosets and tamarins at an early age in the house. We're amongst animals all the time. On school trips, I got to show the school my school class around the zoo when we went on school trips. It was a phenomenal upbringing, a Mowgli, if you will.
Did you have your mates over and go take them around the zoo? And
absolutely,
while it was closed.
Yeah, that's right. Obviously everything's double fenced and everything, so there's no danger of that. But in the later years, we managed to successfully hand rear tiger cubs, which were rejected from their mother, unfortunately, which is never nice, but sometimes you have to do that. So that was an unbelievable experience. And hand rearing a snow leopard cub as well. That was unreal.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I can't imagine. That's mind blowing. Come on, mate. Come on, let's go play in the zoo when it's closed. Yeah, awesome. So, at what point did you ever, I don't know, get paid for your time in the zoo, or?
Yeah, I think so. My first job was at 9 years old. So I used to run the bouncy castle and the crazy golf outside the front of the zoo on the big green there, opposite the shop. And when I left school at 15, because I enjoyed school, but it wasn't something I was particularly passionate about continuing. Although I went on to college and did a foundation degree in construction and did a general national diploma in business. At
that point, were you thinking about family business at the time, or were you thinking of doing something else?
Yeah, I was. I think, it was very much inbuilt in me. My sister was different, where she wants to go out and explore the world and I think go to London, see the big sights of London and do that. But for me, once I left school, especially in the summer holidays as I was growing up, I was always working inside the zoo. So I went from working in food and beverage departments to retail admissions to cleaning to zookeeping to maintenance. When I was at college doing my foundation degree, I was on our new build sites at that time when Goymour Homes was building 100 to 200 homes a year. So I was doing a lot of that just to learn the ropes, really, just doing everything I could to absorb and understand the business.
Yeah, well, obviously, there's been a bit of a theme actually between guests I've had on here. They've all seemed to have, even ones that have had in the family. They all started work early. They all, in their life, they all really got a grips to the money side of it, and that work versus money mentality, I guess. But yeah, it's very much a theme forming here for everyone who's sat in that chair.
We had to be frugal, it's great. I love listening to other business owners and learning about their history and their background, because growing up we didn't have a lot of money. We grew up in a bungalow. We're in a nice spacious room for this podcast, but my room was probably a minimum of half the size of this when I was growing up, and very much hand to mouth with how we were getting by and pushing the zoo forward.
That's probably another misconception about business owners in general, that we do live this lavish lifestyle, but it's from experience it's far from that, in most cases. But yeah, so I guess at what point did you, I don't know, become more involved or become further up the chain, if you like?
Yeah, great question. I think after I finished my college courses, I went travelling for a couple of years. So when I was 21 to 22, I went to Australia and New Zealand for a year. Very much enjoyed that, did that on my own, had no problems, no qualms of being on my own and meeting new people. I love meeting new people and getting to know people. And when I came back, I kind of said to Dad, what do you want me to do? I'll do anything, because that was just past the 2008 recession. So Goymour Homes stopped then, and the banks were very unkind to us, considering we were asking them a lot before the recession about, are we safe to go ahead with this? Are you sure? And they went back on themselves, which wasn't great. And I remember my dad calling me whilst I was travelling to kind of deliver the news that we had to fold, Goymour Homes with the new build side, and sell a lot of the land and properties back to the bank, because we were borrowing, sensibly to push forward. But yeah, that was not a good point in our history. But I think at the same point, my grandfather and great grandfather have been through that before. So I learned a lot about making sure when you're dealing with the banks that you don't rely on them too heavily. So we borrow enough just to do what we need to do, but pay them off as quickly as possible to move on, and utilise our own assets and profits to push forward. So very cautious about that, but following a lot of meetings with banks, over the last few years, I understand that they've changed, but you no longer have a relationship manager. It's all
that's very true.
They don't have that control. So yeah. Coming back into the business side, just did whatever my dad wanted me to do. So worked on projects, just was his little assistant running around doing whatever he wanted me to do. But then I think an opportunity opened up at the Dinosaur Park. So I was still living at Banham, renting off my dad at home, and then built an outbuilding with him and rented off him there. And an opportunity opened up at the Dinosaur Park, as it was known then. It's now known as ROARR. And our operations manager, who was running Banham Zoo, Africa Live, and ROARR, needed some help. And I think there was a clear opportunity for me to get into a management position and to start to learn how to manage people, lead people, work with people at different levels. So literally from the ground up, from I think about 2009, works out as I started as assistant park manager, and working with a lot of managers who are vastly older and more experienced than myself. So it was a steep learning curve, but it taught me a lot. And I really enjoyed learning it the hard way, for how to work with people at a different level.
It is such a relationships, not just in hierarchy, but with colleagues and everyone. You know, it's probably one of the most fundamentally important things in business, isn't it? It's just how you come across, how you gain respect, because you can't get it by shouting at people anymore. But yeah, it is. If you weren't very good at that communication, then you probably wouldn't have gained respect, and therefore you probably wouldn't have been very good at managing those people. But so, what point did the business as a whole gain the Dinosaur Park, or was it existing, or did you start it?
Yeah, it was existing. So it was set up in the 1980s. It was initially offered to us as a family in 1991 to buy, but my father had just purchased Africa Alive, or formerly Suffolk Wildlife Park at that point. So yeah, we purchased it in 2006 along with Western Park Golf Club, which was part of the deal, adjacent on the same estate as ROARR. And yeah, we purchased it in 2006.
And did you have any involvement in Western Park as the golf club as it was, or?
Yeah, I did briefly. I wanted to understand the business. I knew it wasn't a long-term ambition of ours to have that, but because we wanted the Dinosaur Park back then, as part of the deal, we had to have it.
Yeah.
So, but I still wanted to show willing, and had a role as assistant manager then as well, alongside assistant manager at ROARR. And that didn't stop me going back to my roots, really kind of going, right, I want to understand this, so I went out and worked with the greenkeepers, got up at 3 o'clock or so to make sure I was there, just after 4, working behind the bar for a bit, not too often in that area, but I wanted to understand, what is really necessary for the fabric of running a good golf club. So then it's about relationships in terms of memberships and, paying, to play golf, or a green fee basically, and learning all that side of things really. So that's probably my only.
I'm sure most golfers would have sat there at some point while they're going round and just use the time almost to do mental maths. So how much is this really earning? Because, obviously sometimes you pay quite high green fees and you're thinking, how can they justify this? But actually, when you work it out, compared to the amount of land, I'm often left with how do they make any money? Because, it is, in terms of the value of the land, how do they make money out of that? It is, sure. I imagine it's quite, because everyone has to set their green fees within a certain bracket. If you're going to buy land, for example, to build a golf course, well, I never know how Royal Norwich done it, and to this day, the money they invested in that. But perhaps we'll come to that in a minute. So to recap, you're sort of assistant manager at both, and then I guess we're moving into now ROARR specifically. And at what point did you have that as your own, if you like? Or...
Sure. Yeah. So I think the biggest development we put in at the previous owners, of which bought it off the original founder, Roy Benton, who set up the Dinosaur Park to kind of help facilitate the golf club really and keep that running.
Do you think that? Oh,
Yeah.
right. So they
Yeah.
were probably struggling. Yeah.
And we purchased it off Anglian Leisure, Sinclair's enterprise as well, I think it was called, but they're called the Briggs in terms of the family. And the first thing we put in was an indoor play area, which is Norfolk's biggest indoor play area still today. So we started it off in 2008, but that's when the recession hit. So we didn't actually finish and open it until 2011. And it was during that period that I really started to get involved. And Primeval, which some of your listeners may know about, it sounds like you did as well.
I can't remember if I went or just dropped the kids there, but I definitely know of it.
So it came out of a wacky idea. They're already doing a Halloween thing at the then known Dinosaur Park. And my dad loves Halloween. And what he did is we thought, right, how can we utilise a shell of a big steel frame building, for Halloween? So, and that was a passion of his, and it's now 15 years old. And we won the UK's Best Screen Park last year, which we're really proud of. It takes a monumental team effort to achieve what we do now. We got it down to a T. But yeah, in our first year, 2009, we basically used a lot of Harris fencing, a lot of white sheets, bloodied them up, put it in dirt. It's probably not PC now, but we called it in sanatorium. So it's a mental asylum, basically.
Yeah.
Heavy, loud music, bass music. A lot of actors, hitting the Harris fencing, hitting these metal tables, and it's a totally new, wacky experience. But we sold a few tickets. We sold a few hundred tickets, and only did it for I think 1 or 2 nights. So I thought, okay, let's see where this can go. Yeah, and it was my father's brainchild, that, because he absolutely loves Halloween. And funnily enough, we'll come on to that probably in a bit, but in the second year, that's where my now park director started off with us as a scare actor.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Cool. So we're, 2011, 12, I guess, and are you now solely doing ROARR, and it's rebranded at this point as well?
Yeah, so we didn't rebrand till 2018.
Oh, right.
It was Dinosaur Adventure, really. And then we went to ROARR Dinosaur Adventure and then to ROARR. So we did a slow branding change because, people don't like to call things in a new name or change.
Because I've got, my kids are now 22 and 23. But yeah, I remember going there, and then I don't remember it ever changing. And I don't remember this big announcement or anything like that. So you've done the right thing there, clearly, because I don't remember them changing. But yeah, it's just something that has gradually happened, hasn't it? Now you've said that, it worked. So yeah, where are we up to?
2011. So we put in the indoor play area.
Yes.
Primeval was born in 2009. Before we finished building the indoor play area in 2011. And Goymour Homes had stopped trading at that point, but we still owned and operated Banham Zoo and Africa Alive. Mm-hmm. So we were known as the Big Three at that point. So we did an amazing campaign called the Big Three. So buy 2, get 1 free. So buy 2 tickets, get 1 free. And we ran that 2007 to 2008. So it was a phenomenal campaign to raise the awareness that we're all owned by the same group, and we're trying to work together during what was quite a difficult time then in the recession. But yeah, moving forward, really, the first thing we did with Dinosaur Adventures back then is we opened it up to open up all year round, because when we acquired it, it was only open Easter, October, half term. How things have changed, because now we're pretty much almost going back to what it was when we bought it, operating mainly Easter to October half term, albeit we open Fridays to Sundays during the winter period, because it's no longer economically viable to open 7 days a week.
Yeah. And presumably there's been some challenges through that time. Can anything stand out before we get to lockdown or anything like that? But, was there any challenges along the way that you can think of or really stand out?
I think really it's changing the mindset of the people that we had and how people, I think, looked at the park back then. Because it was very much a local park where you saw a few plastic dinosaurs, and the whole point behind the rebranding of ROARR, or to ROARR, was about people understanding that we're investing millions into this to really change what it offers, what it provides, and that we wanted to lead the way as a leading day visitor attraction, which we do today, with what we do and how we do it and the quality of what we do. So that was a key challenge. But also in 2013, as a family, we decided to put Banham Zoo and Africa Alive into charitable trust. So the Zoological Society of East Anglia, Z. And in 2018, my father stepped away as CEO at that point, and we now remain the landlords. But we have a good working relationship in terms of not only just being a landlord, but also as operators, trying to work together, and partnerships and collaborations are really key during these times at the moment. So we do a lot with them alongside Applewood Countryside Park, that's situated behind the zoo on our farmland, to work together there to become a destination in its own right. So yeah, I'd say they're kind of the main things, apart from obviously COVID. After that as well, which was a really tough time for
I can
everybody.
imagine. Yeah, I mean, obviously, everyone's touched on it so far that's come in, but I imagine for you and hospitality in general, it would have been far worse than a lot. But equally, it's outside. So did you get away with it a bit better, or?
Yeah, we did partially. I think when people are allowed to mix and open, we could open up in 2020, albeit you're very restricted with how you did that. In 2021, however, after I think the worst was over, there was still sort of like, I've forgotten what you call them now really, but there were further times when he had to close.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've got it all listed down on the spreadsheet. It's too much to remember now, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2021 ended up being a really good year because of all the support we had from government. VAT was much reduced, which I wish the government would do again. To help businesses at the moment, and possible with the highest payer of VAT in our industry within Europe as well. So, other countries have an advantage over us because they pay a lot less VAT.
Yeah. So I don't know. Did you look after staff? Did you furlough many during that time, or?
Yeah, we furloughed a number, but
we had a skeleton in.
Yeah, skeleton. In the animal team, marketing team, we kept on because we wanted to not fall silent and to let people know we're still here. We provided stuff for people to do at home with their children, which was really cool, which was very much appreciated, and I think actually helped us when we reopened, that people didn't forget about us and actually we were front of mind. So that was quite a key strategy to ensure that we didn't furlough the marketing team. And then we had our gardeners who came in, 1 or 2 days a week because we didn't want it to be an untamed beast when we were looking to reopen.
Do you think you benefited slightly in 2021, maybe 2022, from the whole outdoorsy thing that was going on at the time and just being out in,
100%. People were absolutely bursting to come out, and in 21 we had a very, very good year. It was a really profitable year. 2022 and 23 were a lot harder, but 21 was certainly great.
Yeah, I can imagine it being popular, just because at the time I remember everyone was just interested in doing things outdoors, and camper vans and goodness knows what else went through the roof, didn't they? Yeah. I'd like to say good times, but they were good times if you're a business owner just to get over that 2020. So we touched on challenges. Any real big things you're proud of? What are you most proud of through your time?
I think I'm really most proud of developing the brand for ROARR, developing the team massively, because literally only as of the 1st of February. Promoted my park manager to park director that initially started off with us as a scare actor. My father's now, I think, got the trust belief for me to hold the reins of not only running ROARR, but starting to take more of the family business under my leadership. So I work very closely with my sister, developing and running Appwood Countryside Park and Appwood Hall. But we've also got an estate agency business and property.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah.
So that's Bury St Edmunds, is it? So,
That's right.
yeah.
And we also
What's that called?
Goymour Homes.
Oh, okay.
After
Sorry,
our surname, that's
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of like rental properties, but also commercial property as well.
Right.
So it's looking after all of those and our farmland and how we're developing and I think increasing or changing the way we utilise our land for the benefit of the group.
Yeah, it's important because it does change over time, doesn't it? And well, as I know in the estate agency world, it's up and down, isn't it?
Yeah.
Certainly in terms of sales, anyway. But rental seems stable. Not too sure about the commercial market, but it's.
I believe that rents have gone up.
Yeah.
I listened to an economist last week at a conference, Tim Lung, who was an economist serving directly into the Chancellor of Exchequer the last two. That rents have gone up, I think 25% over the last 3 years. We've that served us really well, especially with our commercial and residential lets, which is good.
Yeah. And just bringing it back to ROARR, how many people are in total working there?
Yeah, so I have to kind of look at it as a group. So we have 50 full-time staff across the group. But when we're at our busiest in peak season, we have circa sort of 100 seasonal staff, but then we also have another 100 for primeval. So we can get up to our busiest times about 250 people on the books working for us. Yeah,
it's quite a responsibility, but I guess it's nice that you can attract that kind of up and down of staff levels. Because that, I guess, brings its legal ramifications, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
With temporary staff, but it's nice that you can still attract them. But then I guess it's a nice place to work.
Yeah, it really is. I'd say the biggest thing people love about us is we are a family business. We are there to run a professional company, but also I think it's no day is the same. People love that, the interaction we've got across the group, which I'm really pushing forward more and more. To work collectively together with our skill sets to help each other, because we've got some really good skills, say at ROARR, which we could use and tap into with Appwood Countryside Park and Appwood Hall. And there's a lot of crossover, and especially now we're doing a lot more events. There's a lot more interworking between the group.
And you I got off camera before we started, but you touched on there's a few local guys, suppliers, businesses you still use. You don't presumably do everything in-house. Do you do the marketing in-house, for example? Is what do you outsource, what don't you?
Yeah, that's a good question. So let's try and throw a few companies that we work with locally. So we use Burkitt's, for example. I'm just going to work my way around the business really. So we use Burkitt's a lot to help us with employment law matters in HR. IT, we use a lot of local companies, so Net Matters, for example, is one. Daisy is another. We use ETS for a lot of tech rentals, basically for our events in IT, because I do a lot of tech for our events as well, which is really, really good. Then if we look at marketing, we do a lot of it in-house, but also we work with KH Digital to do our SEO, website hosting, PPC. We work with Naked Marketing at Appwood Hall and Appwood Countryside Park now, to help push our brand and product there with their marketing services and skills, which is new, but we've also used them for a lot of our branding. With our food and beverage department, we use a mixture of local and national, so we use the likes of Breaks, but we also try and work with local independents. So right now we're trying to hook up and see what's possible with Farmyard Frozen, with Hannah Springham.
I'm trying to get Hannah in here. We've got a date in the diary, so it's
great.
it's looking good.
Box full of energy, Hannah is brilliant. And then we're trying to hook up with Jarrell's as well, just to see if there's anything we can do together. there. So there is
Stick a big dinosaur as you come in or something.
Yeah, exactly. Anything, I think, open up the doors really to anyone listening that, I'm up for discussion, see what's possible. I think we have to work together and for the benefit of Norfolk, really.
Is there anyone you could put your finger on to say you'd love to get a coffee with? I don't know, they might be able to help you out some way, or
I think a lot of people,
anything spring to mind like that?
I think a lot of people I already know and have already reached out to, but I think, I bring it back to the audience. I think, or your listeners, so to speak, is, we've got a lot going on. I'm up for a conversation, a coffee, to see any way we can collaborate and partner up. So, we deal with so much. So as I said, I've already touched on HR, IT, marketing, health and safety, food and beverage. We've got retail products, we've got cleaning products, we've got waste, we do property. So there's a lot of different industries and factors encompassed within our business. So,
and is there anything the venue can be used for that perhaps people don't think of? I know I've been to a firewalk there or something.
Break Charity,
using the space, I guess.
Yeah.
So
there's another great one. We worked with Break Charity a number of times. So a great local charity. But yeah, great question, and actually I can answer that really well now because we've got a lot to offer. So right now we're trying a few different things to diversify at ROARR. So we're going to try some adult retro nights this summer.
Oh, is this you heard it here first?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so we've got an indoor player, we've got a bar, we've got a splash zone, we've got a high rips course. There's many ways that adults can enjoy the park. Yes, you might look at it and think, okay, this is just for kids, but look at what we've done with Primeval. We've got a theatre, Dippy's Theatre, 228-seater theatre, right, where you could host a corporate day, a corporate family day if you want to say thanks to your staff, so the likes of Viva, be more than welcome to pay to have a day or even an evening with your staff, no problems at all. The Explorers restaurant we have located at the bottom of our park, so we've got 80 seats indoors, and we've got a beautiful terrace outside looking into our Victorian walled garden with animals. So we've got 120 seats that we could do outside. Sam, our F&B manager that's been with us since last year, is amazing. He used to work at the Assembly House directly for Richard Hughes, looking after all the afternoon teas, etc. And he knows a lot of the team at Gerald's as well, following a chat I had a couple of weeks ago where I met you, Danny, at Gerald's Business Club. And there's so much we can offer there. And also Primeval or our Christmas events, we do a lot of corporate rates and groups there. And then not forgetting Appwood Hall and Appwood Countryside Park.
Of course,
we've got a huge abundance of space there in Banham, and it's a perfect venue. We've got a huge wedding venue hall, which a lot of people use for whether it's, some awards dinners, or whether you want to have a fun day away. We can set it up however you like. It's a quirky...
Is there any accommodation there? Or?
Yeah, so we have our Countryside Park there right next door. So we have shepherd cabins, camping pods.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you can camp there if you want.
And we're part of the wedding, I guess.
Yes, exactly. So we're trying to link that, and we're looking at ways we can further grow our accommodation to really provide, some really cool lodges. So perhaps tree lodges onto our farm and things like that.
I'm just trying to think of accommodation on the Dinosaur Park.
Well, that's something I've been looking at. Yeah,
amongst the dinosaurs,
which would be quite a cool thing because you see a lot of the zoos now. So I knew the original guy, Bob O'Connor, that ran Port Limb and Howlett Zoo. That was the first to put in the incredible accommodation there. So Giraffe
Are these
Lodge.
the ones where there's the windows and you can see the animals? Yeah,
that's right. And then his best friend who runs, who I know really well as well, West Midlands Safari Park. They've just done it, spent millions, and they are booked out for a year and a half.
Yeah, I tried to book one and saw.
Incredible, and that's what we want to try and achieve, albeit we haven't quite got moving animals like that. We've got dinosaurs, so it's how we do that together.
Though. Must be quite a sight to wake up to, anyway.
100%. I've stayed there a couple of times. And
no, I mean even the dinosaur outside would be quite a sight to wake up to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's there's certainly a lot more to it than I realised. So yeah, that's fantastic. So I don't know, challenges moving forward, looking into the future. Where are we going from here? Obviously, you've mentioned the retro night. Did you say?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
sounds exciting. But any I don't know, any milestones that you're looking to in the quite distant future, 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, quite. I mean, let's say I've been promoted to Managing Director for ROARR this year. And, it's going to be 38 this year.
That's good going.
Yeah,
That's good going. But justified.
quite. I've enjoyed working what I've done, but worked really hard to get to this point. As almost in a family business, you have to prove yourself. I think a lot more than a person coming in, albeit everyone has to prove themselves, obviously to an extent. But I can only talk from personal experience. But I think milestones moving forward is I'm the fourth generation.
No pressure.
Yeah,
I guess there's a lot of pressure there.
There's a bit of pressure, but I think I don't let that control my thoughts or what I think is the right thing to do. My father's very good, and he said, "Look, it's your business to take over. You do with it what you will, where your passion is." Of course, I wouldn't look to sell it and go down that route. I think it's more so about changing it to what I think, is the right way to move forward and what my passion is. And I've been involved in day visitor attractions my whole life. That's what I know. It's my bread and butter, but I want to branch out and grow it. But I've also got a huge team, that I need to look after, and, that plays in my mind every day. We are a people business, and, we welcome hundreds of thousands of visitors a year, but we also have got the staff that do it, and they're the people I love working with, and setting up my own team has been a real joy. And I think moving forward, the big challenges are going to be, there's still people that work directly for my father that are involved in the business that can look to retire naturally over the next few years. And it's going to be replacing them, which, especially like my right-hand man or woman that could be in the financial director in the next 5 years. And it will be, our branch manager for our estate agency. So it'll be people like that as well, alongside looking at where I want to steer the business.
As a whole as well, not just...
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
So one thing we've sort of overlooked was Weston Park. And what was your involvement with Royal Norwich? How did it come about? Tell me about that side and how that...
Well, I can only talk because that was very early on in my management. So it was literally just before I became assistant manager. Was it? It was 2009 really that I started there, and we ended up selling it. When was it? I didn't sell it until 2017 to Royal Norwich, Weston Park Golf Club. So it took, about 10 years of negotiations really to get to that point. But my involvement really with the golf club in that sort of business transaction was, very small.
Yeah.
That was all with my father and our financial director.
And once it completed, I understand your father still had an interest in Royal Norwich, did he?
Not particularly. He's not a golfer. It's the last thing you do. I love playing golf, so I'm lucky I've got a lifetime membership put into the.
Was that part of the agreement?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So I love it. I'm up there most weeks. On a Sunday, first thing in the morning, with Mark Juniper and a few others. So I enjoy it.
Yeah. But I don't know. It was when that first came about. Anyone keen golfing was, oh my God, how are they going to draw the crowds here? But it seems to have done well. I think it's certainly had its challenges. I know, but equally, I think it's now part of the golfing scenery around Norfolk now, and put Norfolk well on the map in terms of championship courses. I like the little 9-hole personally, but it's I'm not a very good golfer. That's the problem.
Well, the beauty of it now is they've opened the doors up so a lot of people can walk their dogs around the estate and then enjoy the clubhouse. They've done a fantastic job with the clubhouse. Obviously, there's a lot I know behind the scenes, of what's going on and everything else, because we are, literally neighbours. So, I spend a bit of time with the interim director now and again, Julian. He's really trying to sort of turn things around, and I think it's a beautiful place. I think any business, they just need to match up necessarily, or probably the pricing, the offering, I think, just to get what they want.
Well, it's like I
to
said
make it
earlier
pay.
about Western Park. It must be so difficult to set that price point because
Yeah,
I appreciate they invested so much money initially.
that's right.
They've got to get it back somehow.
I think I'm not sure if I answered it to the best of my ability in terms of the future. I think right now the economy is still pretty difficult, and I think right now it's just about getting through this. Really, I've got a good vision about what I want to do because I've built up the brand and the IP and protected that to the hilts because I really believe in it and that we could grow that to hopefully open up another park in the future.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to franchise it as well if I got to that point. That's going to take a lot of hard work, strategy to get that in place. And I think we invested a lot in some planning for areas of the park that we're not using. So we've got a big area of development that we could put in. But the partner we were due to work with, who owner of an IP, basically, it's not common knowledge, so I can't really talk about that on here. But they're going through financial difficulties, so I don't think that's going to work out, which is kind of good because we were looking to kind of put the brakes on it anyway. But we've got the planning now, so we've got to go through the pre-commencement conditions this year. And then once we've done that, it might be a change of use to put it into accommodation, but there's a lot of planning work I think you've got to go through to get change of use. I've got a meeting coming up with our architects and the planners to actually understand how would we change it from this is what we put planning in for, but now we want to have a change of use to perhaps use it for accommodation.
And you're talking about at ROARR,
yeah, that's right. Yeah. Because I want to grow the visitor numbers from 300,000, up to its 500,000 potential with the size site that we've got. But we're in Norfolk, and that's half the battle.
It makes sense, doesn't it? Because it is a destination.
Yeah.
But it's a destination without any mass accommodation near it, and even us people from Norfolk who need a passport to get anywhere out of Norfolk. But you think about going to Thorpe Park or I can't remember the name.
Legoland or whatever.
Yeah, you always book accommodation nearby, and yes, it's not a bad idea. That
I think just from your question about what do you see the future being or whatever, I think I've still got to go through the senior people in the team who are great, but obviously I've got to find replacements for them and decide to retire. But it's also navigating the way forward to grow ROARR and to grow Applewood, to the extent where I could hopefully set up another park and franchise it, because I've got the brand trademarks and everything else for ROARR. So I think that's where I'm trying to go with it. But it's trying to navigate your way through all the different options that sometimes work, don't work, and get to that next point. So that's been going on for 5 years that I've been spearheading behind the scenes.
Presumably you've got some advice on that, and I know there's quite a few franchise experts in Norfolk who I've met over the years, and it just seems like quite a lively environment for that type of discussion.
Yeah.
I know quite a few people.
I'd love to be connected, or just even if you email
there's a few people I've got in mind who might be able to help and advise you. But it's obviously hospitality is not my bag, but franchising I know quite a bit about. So it's but not on that level. But yeah, it's quite a niche thing, isn't it? To want a franchise. I've never considered it as such, but it's definitely doable, isn't it?
If you had one park in Sussex that was welcoming, 500 to 1,000 to 1 million visitors, you're fine.
Yeah.
And then obviously it's always a risk going, oh God, we open up another park. So it's like the Escapade Group that own Hobbledown Heath, somewhere in Devon and a few other places. Then there's another group that own like the Coronation Street visitor attraction. And then they own the Emmerdale one and a few other places. And I'm funny enough meeting a guy that helped put that in a couple of weeks. He's London based, who staying in Dorking, and I've been chatting to him since I saw him at the Visitor Attraction Conference in Westminster last year. He worked for the Duchess of Northumbria, who apparently is a descendant of Henry VIII. She's got bucket loads of money and spent 15 million quid on this playground, but it's all a quirky story, and he's brought it to life in a book. And going on to an American Netflix show because the Americans love the English. And I'm trying to say to him, right, I've got Dippy, who is our Diplodocus character, yellow with purple spots. And I've created the friends, so Raz, Terry and Paris. And my part director, is good at doing lots of theatre shows and stuff like that locally in Fakenham and Dereham. And he's only doing one of them now, but he puts all the shows together and helps me bring the creative to life. And we got Naked Marketing to help us with the brand Bibles off the people that originally helped me put the ROARR brand together. And I want to see if he can help me bring Dippy and Friends to life, because I was thinking, well, where's the growth? Do we look at Dippy and Friends, or do we look to bring in an IP to put in this new lands like Polton's Park did with Peppa Pig World? And obviously that angle has not come off. But we've not lost the planning. It's got legs, but I'm trying to prove, to myself and work out, do we now just do that land ourselves? You
incorporate it into ROARR as it stands,
exactly,
I guess.
But is that going to be enough without an IP to bring people here? Or do I work on it separately and think, right, Dippy and Friends, can I just spend the money rather than the park, try and do it digitally and on, with books, and try and get out that way with the people that like this person I meet has got the right connections, so he can make that happen. But then what is that?
Yeah.
How much, I want to know what's it going to cost, because
it
that's
is
a big
an experiment
risk.
at the end of the day, isn't it?
It's a risk, because we can spend all that money on then an asset. At least it's an asset, but with this, if nothing materialises, you've lost it. But whereas that, you've got an asset, but then you could have things sitting there not being used because you can't afford to, because then you're not bringing enough people to make it pay, or then it's too expensive. So then you have to do your market research to make sure that either you've got to market it to get people from further away, but I think accommodation might be necessary. So I'm trying to look at it with change of use to go, right, before we go any further down this road, if we're to change the use, how can we do this
in place before we go?
So we've just got to be patient, really.
But as it stands, presumably comfortable business. It's It's thankfully, because we're multifaceted in terms of what we do, we're able to lean on each other a little bit. We've got properties, and we might be if we go through a tough time, sell off some farmland or sell a property or two or whatever. But we try not to lean on the banks too much. But the thing is, we'll get to a point in the next few years, I think, where you either have to work with a bank, or you've got to be really profitable, for a few years before you can then think, right, we're going to go to this next step. So it becomes a higher risk, I think, because Dad's been through a couple of really tricky times, with the recessions in this country. So Well, certainly doing something right, because it is, like you say, one of our Norfolk's big three, and long may it continue.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thanks for coming in, Adam. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, and you. Yes, I really enjoyed it. Thank you. It's really good.
The Norfolk Business Show with Danny Snelling. Sponsored by MT Comms.